live on the air. I'm Richard Saile.
This is wild.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Lounge Time. I'm your host, Rich Saile, and on today's episode of 2026 Offseason Grades, we go over the Jacksonville Jaguars, our last team in the AFC South division that we will be covering today. We are now 5 teams left after this episode, so we are pushing near the finish line to try to get this series done by next week. But this team had a quiet offseason for the most part. We'll get into all their moves. Quiet free agency, a pretty below average draft class, and we'll talk about everything they did do and if they can replicate what they did in 2025, and we'll cover all that plus the record prediction grade. We'll go over all that. So without further ado, let's get into the Jacksonville Jaguars 2026 offseason, which was quiet, probably the quietest out of everybody that we've covered so far. And it's headlined by 2 big losses, one on each side of the ball, and these are going to be losses that they will feel this season, with Travis Etienne going to the Saints and middle linebacker Devin Lloyd going to the Panthers as their biggest losses. I think the Devin Lloyd loss is going to be significant compared to the Etienne loss, because at least late in 2025, they had an answer for somebody at running back, with Tootin getting some more touches. I'm going to try to get his first name right. I'm going to do that right now as we get into it. But he got a lot of snaps late. Etienne kind of found his way out. And Baishal Tootin, I'm going to say his name is. Okay, let's go with that. If I'm wrong, sorry guys. I'm trying to get this right. But Baishal Tootin got a lot of the snaps late. They got him more involved when they did the 2-back offense a little bit more late in 2025. And Chris Rodriguez, they signed in free agency, which is, all right. I don't love their running back group, especially with Etienne gone. I thought Etienne was their more in-between the tackles running back, and I don't think Baishal Tootin is that guy that can be in the tackles runner. He's more of an outside guy that can catch the ball in the backfield more, like a scat back kind of way. Not really someone that can run in between the tackles. Devin Lloyd is the biggest loss because he is a guy that was their signal caller. At one point, I was saying that he should have been an all-pro caliber player. I don't think he became all-pro because of the guys that you have in the league, like Fred Warner, and Ernest Jones was really good for Seattle last year. You had, I'm drawing a blank, and I just had Roquan Smith from Baltimore that was up there for among the best middle linebackers. And I'm probably missing a couple of other people, but Devin Lloyd I don't think got to all-pro status, and I thought he was at the beginning of 2025 and then didn't. But I really like that signing for Carolina, which we'll cover more next week for their offseason grade. But that's a big loss for the Jaguars defense, because I thought he was a big player on their defense, and he was one of my favorite players coming out of that 2022 draft. Another big move they made was extending Travon Walker, their edge rusher. 4 years, $110 million. Who finished with 3.5 sack campaign last season. And for those of you that don't remember that name, he was the number 1 pick in 2022 to kick off the Doug Peterson era in Jacksonville. Now, I don't think he's worth this extension. I think this is a wholly overpay moment for Jacksonville because he's not lived up at all to what he was supposed to be coming out of Georgia. I never got the number one pick hype. I thought the only reason he was number one overall was because he was on the best defense that year in college football. And I thought Aiden Hutchinson was the better prospect. Travon Walker just didn't flash as much as Hutchinson did out of Michigan that draft. And it's looking like that in the pros now. I don't see it. I never see game wrecking from him. I think he's good to below average certain times. And I don't think he's at all lived up to the 4-year, $110 million extension. No way in hell has he been worth it. And when you're a number one pick, you got to elevate a team. He has not done that at all. So another extension they had was tight end Brenton Strange, 3 years, $48 million, off a 46 catch, 540 yards, and 3 touchdown season. Which, this is another case of wholly overpay. $16 million a year for him? What? No. Wholly overpay. I wrote in my notes, head-scratching extensions. This is who you're giving your money to? Compared to Devin Lloyd, who you let walk? I don't love that move at all for them. And I just don't get it. Like, I feel like that money could have been saved for Devin Lloyd to bring back. I would have let Travon Walker walk with how deep the edge rusher class was, truthfully. But they have no first-round picks in this past draft because they'd used them all for Travis Hunter last year, which at the moment is still playing both sides of the ball. And he should be playing defense from some people's minds. He's probably a wideout with Brian Thomas Jr. and Jacoby Myers, which is a solid receiving core, which we'll get into later. But I don't like the extensions for both Brenton Strange and Travon Walker. Their draft class. Not a fan. Probably the worst draft class out of any team that we've covered. Because I just don't love who they picked. I don't. I think, let's go to their draft order. Like, their highest pick was a tight end out of Texas A&M, Nate Boerkircher. I hope I'm saying it right now. I don't see it. I don't. Then they go back to A&M with another pick, Albert Regis, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M. Pregnon from Oregon, the offensive guard. That's a good pick. Like, he was solid. I mean, he's more of a pass blocker than a run blocker. Josh Cameron, the wide receiver from Baylor, late in the 6th round. I mean, he's okay. I just don't know a lot of these guys that they picked, and I'm going, like, I'm not a fan, truthfully. I'm not. Emmanuel Pregnon and Josh Cameron I know of. The rest, I don't know at all what they were thinking. Like, I almost feel like this did not go well. And there were some good players on the board I thought they might have taken. They didn't. And it's probably because they are so confident that they can do what they were able to do in 25 and do it again in 26, which I remind you that's very difficult to do when Houston got offensive line help. The Colts will get Daniel Jones back from an Achilles injury, and they addressed their defense, while Jacksonville did what? I don't know what they did. Truthfully, I don't know. And I'm not crazy about their draft class. Now, undrafted free agents, they picked up a couple people that I know of. Joey Aguilar from Tennessee Volunteers as, like, maybe a third-string quarterback. Trevor Pena from Penn State. He was good at Syracuse, and then Penn State just did not work out, and it just fell apart from there. Devin Neal, the safety, is pretty solid for the most part. I just feel like they did not have a really strong draft. And I'm just going, like, what was their thinking in this? Amir Abdullah, he's just an okay veteran back, after that in May. And then they just traded for Daniel Saile from the Giants, someone Harbaugh had in Baltimore. And I get it, he's like a 330-pound lineman, 6'8", but he's just a guy that's huge that they might throw in like jumbo sets. Dane Jackson, good for cornerback depth. I'm not over the moon over these signings. Jelani Tavai, I'm a Patriot fan, so I know good luck with him. I was never a big Jelani Tavai fan. I feel like, and I've said this on countless times if you go back to the real OG days, he was always trailing to a running back out of the backfield or a tight end. He always gave whoever he was on massive leverage to where he was always trailing on the play. I was never a fan of him at all in New England. Never really saw why people liked him. I thought he was severely overrated. I just didn't think he was that good. And now he's on Jacksonville. Well, I'm not surprised. So, overall, I thought their draft class very underwhelming. Their free agency, nothing really moved me to make me go they improved. So, let's go to their depth chart. Where offensively, I forgot about Parker Washington. I want to talk about him a little bit. Offensively, I am not a fan of the running back room. I don't know if this Bashal Tutin and Chris Rodriguez duo is going to work for 26. If they had an in-between the tackles type of running back that you could trust, I would then say, okay, this offense would not worry me. Are they going pass happy with Trevor Lawrence in 26? This is what this feels like. Because when you've got a trio of Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington, who caught fire late last year, look at the Denver game. He had a big game against the Broncos in Mile High. Jacoby Myers, who they traded for in the middle of last year at the deadline. You have Travis Hunter as your fourth. And then you have Josh Cameron as your five, which, they're okay. I just feel like this is signaling we're going to let Trevor Lawrence cook. We're not going to run like crazy. Brenton Strange, I never saw the big extension move. Never got it. He was solid as a tight end. I don't think he's worth $16 million a year. Borkercher from A&M, I don't understand it. Maybe they don't like their tight end depth, but I don't see why he's going to play significant snaps. Maybe in certain tight end sets he might. This offensive line, it's not awful like Ezra Cleveland, Walker Little, Robert Hainsey, Pregnone at left guard. It's a solid offensive line. It's not an above average line. Anton Harrison at left tackle. It's not a bad offensive line. It's probably average, maybe somewhere in the 13 to 18 range. I'm not going to say it's below average because you got some good players on that line, but it's not like an elite offensive line. It's serviceable. I just feel like that running back room is just not giving me any optimism that they can be right in the playoff mix once again. I don't see it. And Trevor Lawrence, we saw him against Buffalo where he had some critical interceptions that led to points and one that sealed the game, which he kind of quieted down late in that game. The defense, which was really good last year. And I think it'll be solid this year again. Travon Walker, Arik Armstead, Devon Hamilton, Josh Hines-Allen. I like the front four. I think it's an average front four. I haven't seen game-wrecking ability out of Travon Walker. Arik Armstead, solid defensive tackle that can rush the passer. Hines-Allen, he's really their main guy. And he's the guy that can get the double-digit sacks. Their D-line depth doesn't wow me as much. That's my, one thing with the depth isn't strong. So, I'm not convinced there with the rotation. But as a starting front four, it's pretty good. The linebacker group, Foyesade Olukun, I remember talking about him when he was with the Falcons. Ventrell Miller, Jack Kaiser, with Jelani Tavai being a rotation guy. Don't love the depth here either. And then defensively, Travis Hunter looks like he is the starting corner on ESPN here. And again, this is what I'm going with. Eric Murray, I remember him on the Chiefs. Antonio Johnson, solid free safety. Monteric Brown, opposite corner. Jordan Lewis, and then Jerry and Jones. Again, this defense does not have a lot of depth. That makes me confident about them running it exactly the way that they built 2025 off of. I don't see the depth that makes me feel confident in either group on defense. I think the starting group is solid. I think they'll be an average defense this year, not top 10 like they were in certain categories last year. And I feel like that they're going to have to get pressure with 4, which they have the capability to, but they need certain guys to step up. Their linebacker group is probably the weakest group on this defense, because I think Devin Lloyd was so good in the middle that Olukun could cover tight ends out of the backfield, and Kaiser is okay, but I don't love the depth on this team. I feel like there's a lot of questions whether the depth of this team is good enough to get them in the playoff mix, and I don't think it is. I really don't, because I see some holes on not just defense. Offensively, a running back I mentioned, I don't know if that's going to lead them to 12-5 like they did last year. I'm going to say it doesn't, for the sake of what I've seen this team do in the offseason. Now, let's go to the big questions I have with Jacksonville, because this is a really short offseason for them, so I have time for this. Trevor Lawrence, you have one playoff win. At some point, are you going to be that guy that we know can be a top 10 quarterback in this league? Because 2022, there was a little stretch, even 23, where we were like, okay, he has finally shown why Jacksonville took him number 1 overall in 2021. And then 24, it went down. 25 was good, and there was glimpses where he looked really good and above average. And then the playoffs happened where he threw some bad interceptions, one that led to Bills points and the other one that sealed the game. And you go, yep, he crumbled back down to earth. And again, he's got a lot of talent, arm talent-wise, but there's something missing. And you go, what the heck is missing with him for a guy that went number 1 overall, that won a national championship at Clemson, and that won a playoff game against Justin Herbert, being down 27-3. You remember that game? I do. Charger fans don't like me bringing up that game, but the Twitter trolls want to believe that didn't exist. Those people know who they are. Back to this conversation at hand. He has not been the same since 2022. He has slowly regressed. This is a big year for him. He's got to have another strong year. I think 25 was the first year he finally went upward, but now he's got to do it in games that matter. And I wonder if he's going to be able to build on that with a little to no running game that I feel like Jacksonville's not going to have. Like, they've got receivers that can go make plays. But I don't know if 25 made me go, all right, yeah, let's completely building it in Trevor Lawrence's hands, when you did try to do that in the playoff game against Buffalo and it didn't go well. You actually ran the ball pretty solid on them when you actually ran the ball. And he didn't do that. And Liam Cohen, who is a solid offensive head coach. I'm not going to say he's awful. He's actually solid. And listen, when you take a team that was top 5 draft pick to 12-5, you've done something right. Okay? Now it's, can you build it over a sustained period of time? And I don't know if he's going to, with how the better the division got. Tennessee's a little better roster-wise, but they're still better than the Titans. The Colts beefed up their defense. The Texans beefed up C.J. Stroud's offensive line, even though they just lost Jaden Higgins for the year, which sucks, and now they're trying to get Kayshon Boutte from New England, reportedly, which that's going to be tough. But I just think the division around them got better while they stood pat. And I'm going, for a team that went 12-5 and was a couple plays away from beating Buffalo, there were opportunities to make a roster move that would put you in the playoff mix. And I'm starting to say, this could be a candidate from playoffs to being totally out of the picture. I'm not going to say first to last, but it wouldn't shock me with injuries and all that if it happens. Not that I'm saying that I'm wishing injuries. No, but I'm saying if there was a candidate from first to last this year I could see out of everybody last year, it's either, I wouldn't say the Steelers because Cleveland's quarterback situation is bad. I'd probably say Jacksonville if Cam Ward and the Titans make a little leap, which I think they're a year away. And then the NFC-wise, I'm thinking who could be that candidate, which everybody might say Carolina, but I don't think so. Not from what I've gathered, no-wise grading. So I think the best candidate from first to last would be Jacksonville. Let's go to their schedule because I want to predict the records. They open up at home against Cleveland. Now, for the record, I have one survivor pool I've already gotten into, and I picked the Jaguars to win against Cleveland. I expect them to win against the Browns because if Deshaun Watson's starting, I expect the Jaguars to cook against Deshaun Watson because he has been awful. So I think that's a win at home. At Denver, there's no way you're beating Denver 2 years in a row in Mile High. Lost. Home for New England. Okay. I don't think they're better than New England roster-wise. I'm going to say that's a loss. At Cincinnati, no. No, I think this team's better. And Cincinnati won at home against them last year, 1-3. Home for the Eagles, but that's overseas. They got back-to-back overseas games against the Eagles and Texans. See, okay, I might be high on Philly. But again, I still think this defense is really good over there in Philly. Their offense worries me. This will be close. I'm going to say the Eagles narrowly win, 1-4. Houston. I believe they're going to split with them. I'm going to say that's 2-4 going into the bye week. This could be 1-5 though. Wouldn't shock me. Home for the Colts. That's a win. I'm going to say 3-4. At Baltimore, loss, 3-5. At the Titans, 4-5. At the Giants, I think the Giants are going to surprise people. 4-7 or 4-6. Home for the Titans, I think that's a win. I think they'll sweep the Titans this year. So 5-6. At Chicago, 1 o'clock game in December. No, 5-7. Home for the Steelers. I'm not big on the Steelers. I'm going to say 6-7. They could beat the Steelers. At Houston, lost 6-8. Cowboys, lost 6-9. Home for Washington, win. At the Colts, that's a loss. I'm going to say 7-10 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think this team, the early part of this schedule is brutal. The first half of it's brutal. When you play at the Titans and down, it's not as bad. You've got a couple games you'll lose in December, like in Houston, in Dallas, the Texas games. In Giants, I think the Giants are a little better. I do. And at Colts, if they need it for the playoffs, the Colts, I believe, will get back. So I'm going to sit at 7-10 for the Jaguars. I don't think they're a playoff team. I don't. I think there's a possibility that they could make a case if they can build on what they did last year. I don't think they will. So I'm going to rule them out and say they are not playoff worthy right now in my estimation. So I'm going to say 7-10. They'll miss the playoffs, which leads me to my offseason grade. I'm at a C-. I don't love what they did. I think there are holes in this roster that are going to get exploited when you play that first half of the schedule. It's particularly really good defenses with New England that will take away the run. Philadelphia's really good. Houston's really good. Denver's really good. Where if you have no running game, they're going to find a way to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. And New England has a pass rush. Philadelphia's got a pass rush. Houston's got a pass rush. Baltimore's got a solid pass rush. You got some teams on the schedule where I'm like, they can rush Trevor Lawrence with 4 guys. And you're banking on a lot of that receiving core getting open a lot, and you're banking on Trevor making another leap, which I'm not convinced he will. So if they had a in between the tackles running back, I would have said, okay, I could see them maybe being 8-9. Maybe not an 8. No, they don't have one. And their depth on defense, to me, if they have injuries there, they're going to be in some trouble. I think if they can add some depth, I would feel a little bit better about where they're at. I don't. And I think they're banking too much on the high of what they did last year. So I'm going to say C-. They got some real depth issues on the defensive side of the ball. They have a lot they're banking on Trevor Lawrence with. Their offensive line is solid, but they have no running game that makes me go, okay, they can be balanced and be really good, which I'm not there with. So that is my 2026 offseason grade on the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have finished the AFC South. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so that way you guys can get all the latest content. We are down to 5 teams left for the offseason grade series. We're looking to finish next week and get ready for the preseason episode in late August, early September. It will be out. You don't want to miss it for my Super Bowl 61 matchup and winner and playoff teams. You can also follow me at LoungeTimePod on X, and I've been tweeting a little bit recently, but if you have a question for the show, tweet at LoungeTimePod. I'll answer it on the show, and hopefully it's a good question that I can answer. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Lounge Time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys on the next episode of 2026 Offseason Grades.